Hi all, welcome to session 9 of the Azure Data Factory. In this session, we are going to cover two topics, that is max concurrent connections and skip line count option in source section of the copy data activity. So let me go to my Azure portal and I will give you a demo how these two options work when we are copying data from source to sync. Let me log in. Okay. So here we are in our resource group. I'm going into my data factory and I'm opening my data factory studio, and simultaneously I'm also opening my storage account where I have created my data lake. So in this data lake we have two containers as of now. So for the max concurrent connections we are going to use students, and for the skip line count we are going to use data. Okay, so in the students, let me just delete all the syncs that I have created. Fine. So if you see in the source, what we have our partitioned files where we have partitioned our data into stream and then into batches. Now, let me go to my data factory, and in the data factory, I am going into pipelines, and in the pipeline, let me go to copy customer data. Okay. So I'm not going to change anything here except that I'm going to use enable partition discovery and set the partition root path. So without any option that I am going to discuss in this particular section, that is max concurrent connection skip line count, let's see how this pipeline is going to perform. So I'm going to click on this and I'm going to say debug. Okay, so I also have to change the wildcard. Let me just open the data set and I have to say students here. For the sync, I also have to change the container name from data to students. Okay, now let me go to this and click on debug. I'm going to say I want everything from source and student, and I want all the files with .csv extension, and I want into sync, and I want to preserve the hierarchy. So let me click on it. It is going to run the pipeline in the debug mode. So it succeeded. It took 24 seconds. Okay. Now if you click on the monitoring, you will see that the parallel copies that it was using was 11. So there were 11 concurrent connections that were simultaneously happening. Now if I want to change it, so when this thing matters is when actually you are trying to get the data from a database. So if you are not monitoring this, chances are that you will open a lot of concurrent connections on the database and that may impact other users. So you want to make sure that you are using the maximum concurrent connections without affecting any other workload that is running on the database. So in that scenario, I am going to click on copy data, and by the way, just notice this, it has taken 24 seconds. Okay, now I am going to say, let me go to data activity, and I'm going to say I want to use 20 concurrent transactions. So earlier it was 11, now I'm going to say maximum 20 concurrent transactions. Okay, I'm going to say again, I want everything from source. I want star.csv, and that means everything with .csv extension. I want in sync too. Okay, and I set the debug. So let's see what happens. So now if you see, it only took 13 seconds, less than what it took earlier. So if you want to check that monitor, if you click on that, if you click on monitor tab and you go to debug run. So in the debug run, you see, let me refresh it. Okay, so it is taking time. Yeah, now if you see, first time we ran, it took 27 seconds. Now it took 16 seconds. Okay, so we increase the maximum concurrent connections. Now let me go and reduce it. So I'm going to say that I just want at max 2 concurrent connections. So let me go and change the max concurrent connections to 2. And let me see whether I have made the change correctly or not. Yes, so let me click on debug. I would say I need everything from source. I need star.csv. I need sync 3. In the meantime, if you see, the data has been loaded into sync and sync 2. Everything looks the same as the source in sync 2 as well as in sync. So it succeeded. Let me click on this. And if you see, the parallel copies were 2. So only two connections were initiated. And I am going to monitor tab now. So again, if you see here, you click on 27 first, second 27 seconds. So here it took 11 concurrent connections. Then after that, if you come back to all pipeline runs, in the second one, it took, okay, I think there was 16, right? Parallel copy is 11. Where is that example in which we used only 2 concurrent connections? Let's see. Yeah, so here we used only 2 concurrent connections. I think there was one more where we actually used 20 and it was showing 20. I don't know why it is not visible here. But the gist of this entire discussion is that the max concurrent connection will only allow that many connections in parallel to the source. So this is important when you are working with a database that is also serving other customers. So suppose if you are trying to ingest from an application database and that database is actively supporting an application, you don't want to impact the application performance. So if you want to get the data fast from that particular database, and if you open a lot of connections, so that will consume a lot of resources on the database server, and in turn there will be less resources for the application to work with the database. So that is why this maximum concurrent connections are mostly used when you are trying to work with the databases. And in the normal scenario, like in this scenario where we are dealing with data lake as a source and data lake as a sink, it does not matter that much. Okay, so this is the first option, max concurrent connection. Now let's discuss the second option in the source tab. So this second option is skip line count. So for this I have actually prepared a data set. Let me open it. Let me open in the notepad. Okay. I think I will use customers in this case. Let's skip this. I'm going to use customers. So in the download, it is the same customer files that we are using in our last session. So what I have done, I have just added 3 more lines with 1, 2, 3 as a data, and we want to skip these 3 lines when we want to put the data in the sync. So like this is garbage technically. So if you want to make sure that this particular case does not happen in your sync file, so you want to skip the first 3 lines. So that is how you are going to, this is what you are going to achieve with this skip line count. So if I go ahead and I first upload this data set in our students, in our data container, not the student container. So let me go ahead into my containers, and in the data, customer source, customer CSV, and if I click on edit, you can see I have already uploaded it. Okay. Now I'm going to remove all the changes that I have made. So just simply close it, do not publish. That way it will discard all your changes, and you just click on the PL customer data. Okay. Now come here, and in the source, just enter skip line count as 3. That means from the top of the file you want to skip first 3 lines, and as you can see, you can add dynamic content also. That means you can parameterize this as well. So right now I'm just going to publish it, and I'm going to run the pipeline in the debug mode. So let me say I want data from customer source, customers.csv. I want it into customers sync, and I want it as customers.csv. Now the pipeline is running in debug mode. Let me check why it is failing. Customer source, customers.csv path not found. Okay. Go back. See, customer source, customers.csv. Data. Okay. So let me remove the hard coding. Let me remove the parameterization. So I'm going to say file path in dataset, and file path in dataset. Let me open, and let me check the preview. Okay, so yes, we have the data. Fine. So here it is good. All right. And in this, let me change here. I think it is already there. Let me go to sync. In the sync, I'm going to say, okay, I think it should work. Let me publish it one more time. So I have the preserve hierarchy, so I don't have to give the name. It will automatically preserve the hierarchy for me. So I have to click on debug. I don't have to give anything here. I am going to say customer sync. Okay, so as you can see, it has succeeded. Now let me go to the data and I'm going to refresh it. In the customer sync, if you go, there is customers.txt, and if I click on edit, you see the first three lines are not there. So it has skipped the first three lines before copying the data into the sync location. So these are the two options that are not that much used but can be very helpful in certain scenarios. The first option, max concurrent connections, is helpful when you are dealing with an application database or any other data source which is being used by some other applications, and the resource has to be shared equally among those workloads. And the skip line count happens when you want to make sure that your data is correct, and in order to do that you have to skip first 3 4 lines. Suppose if you are getting a csv file, and in that csv file before the data there is a metadata. It's like what was the timestamp of the file and what is the source of the file path, etc. So you don't want that, you just want to get the data. So those first 4 5 lines, if you want to skip in every file that is coming to in your data lake, so that is when you will use skip line count. So I hope this session will give you some clarity on these two options. And in the next session, we are going to look at the last remaining part of the source tab. That is going to be our additional columns. So it's a very small topic, but still I'm going to cover it and you will find it useful. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you liked the session. Please like, share and subscribe. Thank you.